Okay, good evening. Are you able to view the agenda?
Yes, I am,
Yes.
sir.
Could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the policy committee meeting to order at 6:48. Roll call, Mrs. Pertinio, please.
Mr. David Bradley,
Here.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Here,
and Mr. Larry Stern.
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. Cleaver, would you like to proceed?
Yes, thank you. The first, we do have two policies for review today, this evening, excuse me. One is a completely new policy, as you can see, 113.4, and 113.1 is the policy regarding the discipline of students with disabilities. So both these policies do reference special education. So I'm going to see, are you able to view the policy from board docs?
yes,
Okay. Is that better to view that?
yes,
Yeah, okay, sorry about that. So you can see 113.1, you could see the changes that are being recommended for this evening for the first reading. You could see that they've changed some of the his and her readings now to be more specific to the general student, not saying his or her. And this is going to be brought up probably in several other policies as we move forward. They are going through and making some of the general changes to where it used to say his and her to now referring to the students or the child in different other areas. So you'll see this as we move forward through policies. At our policy meetings, you'll see many of these changes being recommended to be made. So basically for this one, the big portion of it, we are doing this now. We still are doing this type of recording as it's listed. However, it was not in the policy. So we are actually putting it into the policy. The Safe Schools report does get, filled out by the end of the year, July 31st, and those incidents are reported to the Office of Safe Schools. So we have been doing that. You are required to do that, but really it's putting all our procedures that we currently doing into the policy. And that's what this is in reference to. Any questions for?
So again, were these changes made by PSBA and therefore being adopted statewide, or are they specific to Lehighton?
These are, yeah, Mr. Bradley, these are recommended changes from PSBA and also special education as well. PDE, their volume, their Department of Special Ed, to make sure they're in compliance.
So did you receive correspondence from PSBA and PDE, or just PDE, or just PSBA?
Yes, PSBA will send us monthly updates on policies that we need, that should be reviewed. And if there's any that we have not updated, that's what we would bring to the board for approval. Or if there's a new law that comes into place, they will send out notifications to us as well regarding policies that should be reviewed and revised.
So do you have any communications on this policy specifically and directly from Pennsylvania Department of Education, or just the PSBA lobby firm?
PSBA for this, but again, it's references stuff from PDE as well to make sure we're in compliance. Okay. Now the next policy for review here is policy 113.4. This is a completely new policy. Again, it is what we currently are doing as far as student records and student information, not only for special education, but regular students as well. So this policy is being recommended that it is a totally new policy for review. And again, this one does come from PSBA as a policy that if you did not currently have it, that they are recommending you do have this policy. And again, it is our procedures that are taking place. It just puts everything into policy format for the district. Some of the areas you could see, it talks about parental access rights. Parents always have full access to their students' personnel records. They have authority to access that at any time, as long as they do have permission. There may be custody issues or other type of civil matters that does not permit a parent to see educational records. There is times where we are subpoenaed to present all students' educational records for a court hearing or court case, if it may be a custody issue. So that all is also addressed within these guidelines as well for this policy.
Mr. Cleaver, I have one question on, I guess it's probably the next to last bullet, if you would scroll all the way down, where specifically that disclosure to law enforcement, they reference disability, where in this particular document, they don't reference disability in any other section.
Right. Right. This is just an issue with the records and how it would relate to FERPA, the educational rights when it is related to a student with special needs as well.
Yeah, they just called out disability on this one. I guess because it's some of the special education issues are related to the disabilities that the individuals do have. So
that is correct. When we're dealing with certain students who have disabilities, you have to have a manifestation hearing to see if, for example, that student's disability was part of the reason for that student doing the act that he or she may have done. And then there's different laws and compliance that falls into that scenario. Now that's just for the school piece. Now, if something happens outside of school, it's, school law and civil law and, local laws is much different.
yeah, I did notice that in many sections, they do reference the manifestation of the disability if it did cause the particular issue or if it doesn't, so there's some judgment that goes on there, and that if it's determined that the disability or the circumstances of the student did not cause them to react in a certain way, the parents or the guardians or whoever does have a right to challenge all that information and decisions with the appropriate process. So I did notice that as well. So thank you.
And Larry, when it recognizes about halfway down the page, if you can scroll back up, Mr. Cleaver, to where it says records hearing. Little further up.
Sorry
there you go. The district shall. So Larry, you've been on this board very long. Yes, this is an opportunity. You obviously read this policy because you got to the end where you had a question. When it came across this records hearing, who is the parties that are hosting the hearing? Who's adjudicating this policy? And where is the hearing held?
They're all case specific, Mr. Bradley. The only thing that would come to the board in the event would be an expulsion if that is, what is being recommended at that point. So as far as the hearings, a lot of times it is with the administration, the IEP team would, be involved with that. And it's more of a discussion and try and see what we can do to what's in the best interest of the child, as part of that meeting, as we do with all our IEP meetings. So as far as a hearing, the only thing the board would be involved with if it's a recommendation of expulsion based upon, an act from a student.
Well, we'll read the policy a little more closely, sir. It basically shows that would make the district who put the record into the students' information, part of their educational record. Whatever information was put in there, that would have been put in by the administration. And if the parent is challenging that information in the student's record, the parents would be arguing against the information presented by the administration, and therefore it is the board that's the adjudicative authority in this
Not in a due
policy.
process hearing, sir.
And it's part of that special education due process hearing. Are you saying that the
that is
due
not the
process
case.
hearing, so who are the parties in this hearing?
It would be the district, the parents and or guardians, and then the individual overseeing the due process, whether it be appointed by, the state after they filed a request for due process.
So
There's
who's
many-
doing the due process hearing? Who are the parties, sir?
Either one can file, the district can file due process, or the parent or guardian can file due process.
Correct. And the parties would then be the district, right? And at which point the board is the adjudicative authority of these policies. It doesn't go to carbon court. It doesn't go, you can deal with the ODR, and that is definitely a benefit in comparison to what we've been doing with these lawyers and things. But this is very specific to information in a student's educational record. And I believe, and I'd like you to get clarified, that hearing is a board hearing, and it can either be public or it can be private, and that is a function of the parents' interest in that regard. If they want to keep it private, they can. If they want to say, no, I want this public, I want people to know that this is what we're fighting against. So in that realm, that's what I believe this to be. And then secondly, this was written again by PSBA, who is a lobbyist, and there's no accountability listed in this policy at all. And I believe we as a board that provides this oversight, elected oversight of this government agency, should have some accountability to these standards. Larry, don't you think we should put some accountability inside these policies? And even if we're not the one writing it, shouldn't we, prior to recommending them to the board for moving forward, that we go back to the person that wrote it and said, we want accountability in these policies prior to having them adopted? That would just make sense, right?
You don't consider the results of the hearing, the accountability, and what has to happen if it is in favor of the district or not in favor, or in favor of the student or their guardians, that the information
Well, according to our superintendent.
Why do we laugh, David? Why do we laugh?
Because you're ridiculous, Larry. Because you're ridiculous. You don't understand the concept, apparently. So if you are suggesting that the hearing, which is going to be the superintendent of schools, who authorizes...
I think you missed a key point, that there is an adjudicator that is assigned.
Yeah, the adjudicator is the board.
No, it's not.
No, it is not, Mr. Bradley.
Who's
Sadly, it is not. No,
who's
it is not.
assigning the adjudicator?
To do with
Do
due
not listen to
process.
Mr.
Who's assigning the adjudicator, sir?
The state would assign it if you're in a due process situation.
If you're in a
The
due
board has
process situation
nothing
at
to
the
do-
state level for special needs.
Mr. Bradley, again,
But that's only for special needs. I'm talking about if parent A comes in and says, why is this in my student's record? The addition of that item into the record is done by the district staff. And if the person is arguing whether or not it should or should not be in that person's record, that goes to the oversight board.
Mr. Bradley, it
Now,
says
if you're
right
saying
there
it's
that-
different, we should clarify that, because
I'm
that's what
clarifying it for you now. The board does not get involved with
You
due
don't have the
process.
authority to clarify this for me. I want it in writing from an authority that actually knows how to read the policy and then adjudicate
I
them.
know, Mr.
Because
Bradley.
there's
If no one agrees with the way you read it, then it's absolutely wrong. Is there
No,
any
sir.
other
I'm
questions?
asking
Because I'm
for
not gonna-
I'm
no.
asking for clarification from the person that wrote it, because I think that this district has been doing it wrong. We're paying lots of money for lawyers, and I don't think it's being done properly. I think that the process is flawed, because if the person is challenging, according to this document, information in the student's record, it was put in there by our administration. No board member puts it in. So it goes in by the administration. So they should not be the adjudicator of that material. However, since the board has authority over the government or the district and these policies, and we are the adjudicative authority of implementing these policies, when it says the district shall hold the hearing within a reasonable time after receiving the request for the hearing, that's the district. That goes back to this common definition of who's the district. And that's basically this policy writer, the only one with the authority to write a policy, the only one that can authorize a policy to be adopted is the board. And the only way we can make this recommendation and adopt it is if we first ask our community members for their opinions, because we work for them. And that's kind of how you're supposed to have this public comment, because we're in a public meeting. We're supposed to talk to them first. This is how the process works. You guys don't really follow that process. And I agree that it's dogmatic. And I agree that you might not want to agree with me, because I'm the one that actually reads and remembers. However, that's where I think it's at. So I think you do need to have this clarified before Larry rubber stamps it through without even letting the people speak prior to adopting something, and then not even knowing what he's talking about. Because in a deposition, Larry's comment was, what does adjudication mean? Okay, and that's where we're running into trouble, that this board is an oversight board.
Now
We
you're
do have
making things up
responsibility.
again.
I will
Bradley.
pick on you
No,
all
you're
I can,
making it up.
Mr.
You're
Stern,
you're
because
making
you are
things up.
not
You're
doing your
picking-
job.
I'm not saying you're picking on me.
I'm saying you're not doing your
up.
job.
Okay, Mr.
You need to do your
Cleaver.
job. This is
But
part
I
of the
do
job.
think it's
Hold on,
important
this is part of the job.
Bradley
Are we
is-
going to get this done or not?
Mr. Bradley, you're requesting to see students' educational information.
No,
You
I'm
must-
not requesting to see, you're
You're gonna be part
diverting
of
it.
the
I
hearing.
am not asking to see, wait, I am not asking to see their
Oh, I
information.
believe you are.
I'm asking you to get a clarification on a
Bradley,
policy
don't get
prior
upset.
to its adoption.
Don't
I'm
please
asking-
don't raise your voice.
I'm
Agree to disagree.
asking
Okay.
you to get clarification on a policy and the process to which this policy will be
You're
adjudicated
asking if you
prior
have
to its
the right
adoption.
to see.
I am only seeking to have the policy process be identified by PSBA or PDE.
This is from
Private.
PSBA, Mr. Bradley.
Then I want them to identify what they're saying by who is the district, who is the hearing, and who is the adjudicator of this policy. Because currently in Pennsylvania School Code, it is the board that is the adjudication authority. So if they're the one hosting this hearing, as we did in the past, that's what needs to be explained. And if you don't understand that, I'm not asking
Riley,
me
I
to tell you how to do it or your
Yeah.
job. I'm going to get PSBA to do it for me, because you're not being rational with your reading of a policy in plain English. And at the same time, not only is this policy is missing the accountability process, because in the event that something happens, we want to hold our government accountable. We don't want to just keep sweeping it under the rug every time something goes wrong within the district. Circle the wagons. We want to recognize that the error was made, apologize for the error, correct the error, and then move forward. That is a transparent and lawful district. That's where we're
you.
missing it.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
Well, no, I need this
anything
board. Hold on,
further?
I'm part of this committee. I need this board to agree.
Is there any
This policy
question?
committee. Hold on, I need this policy committee to agree that we need this answer. Not, I don't want to see personal information. I want to know whether or not this district hearing is held by the board or some other person. And if the administration is appointing the adjudicator, well, that's biased as can be. We can't have that. And that would be wrong. So
Anytime
I
due
need this board.
process,
So
they
Rita,
vote.
do you want to make sure we get this clarified? Larry, do you want to make sure this gets clarified? It's our committee meeting. Okay, don't let the rubber stamper push along this thing without understanding the concept here. There's a
Bradley,
hearing.
First of all, Mr. Bradley, if you would please refrain from your derogatory terms, it would be appreciated. Yes, let's get clarification, Mr. Cleaver, and for the second reading, and the public can comment at the board meeting when the board is reviewing the policy in public. Thank you.
No, sir. This is a Sunshine Act meeting. It was administered on the Sunshine Act. We can't do recommendations to the board without first allowing those people to have a right to
Mr. Bradley,
speak.
we
You've had this conversation.
We have a-
I know.
You had
Yeah,
this
I know.
conversation, but why not just do it anyway? Why not just
It'll
ask?
be at the
Maybe
end.
no one will
It'll be
answer.
at the end. Yeah.
Why not just ask so we can do it right?
Anything for
Appease
the
me.
other two.
Why not
policies
appeasing? Why not let them speak?
For
Why
two-
are you silencing? Why not just say, you know what, it's a committee meeting, let's have them have a conversation? Why wouldn't we have a conversation before making that recommendation?
808.
You're
There's a-
silencing people. Why would you do that? Larry, you mentioned in the board meeting that they have a right to come to the committee meetings. They're in this room. We have 10 attendees in this room. They should have a right to speak and
And if
comment
there-
on these policies.
No other, it's public comment, and if there's any comment for the policies that are there, they have the opportunity to speak on them.
When, sir?
So is there-
When,
I'm-
sir? When's a
Mr.
reasonable
Bradley,
opportunity
maybe
to
when
comment?
you stop talking, they may have an opportunity to do that. Is there any public comment from the people in the attendees? Thank you. Ms. Bose?
Yes, I'm not sure I understand the context in which that particular section was put in, but it would be nice to get clarification. And certainly not just clarification, but I'm sorry, I'm looking for the right word here. I think it needs to be spelled out. As to who the adjudicator would be, who they would be appointed by, etc. If it's not spelled out in the policy, I think it should be spelled out so that everyone understands it. That's all I've got.
So basically, you're recommending to this board, prior to its approval, that we remove the ambiguity
Mr.
in
Bradley,
the
there
policy. Is that what you're
nothing
thinking,
being
Barb?
approved.
I'm speaking to Barb. So Barb,
Did I not
As-
speak? Didn't
are
I
you
not
thinking-
say that, Mr. Bradley? Mr.
are you
Bradley,
looking
did I
to
not say
remove
that?
I'm sorry, Larry.
No,
stop
I'm not
yelling.
looking to remove
stop
her.
yelling at me.
I,
You can tone down, sir. Barb, are you thinking that we should remove the ambiguity from these policies prior to adoption? Is that what you're suggesting?
Ms. Bose, I'm sorry.
Yes, I don't think there should be any ambiguity in any of the policies. It's caused issues in the past. And I think things need to be spelled out. It doesn't need to be 1,000 pages, but it should be succinct but spelled out.
I
That's all I
completely agree.
have.
We have that process in a lot of these PSBA policies. Actually, some of the other school districts are talking about getting rid of PSBA because of this ambiguity and the fact that it actually puts the students and the families in a adversarial position to the board when the ambiguity, the capriciousness of the government is inside of these policies. At some occasions, that has caused significant cost in litigation because of the capricious application of a policy by a school board or by a administration, and then failed to be properly adjudicated by the board to correct the administration when an error occurred. And I completely agree with you. Thank you for having that conversation and addressing your board. The more that you and other people in the community speak up, the better the conversation and the better your government. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Ms. Bose, sorry.
Okay, let me just say this. It not only clarifies it for the parent, the child, the community, but it would also clarify it for the board and wouldn't put them in the position of not getting it right, therefore saving the district money in litigation, etc. So it's not just for the sake of the parent and the child, it's also for the sake of the board, so that the board understands it completely. That's all.
I agree, Barb. That
Any other
well said.
comment
Thank
from
you. I
public?
really appreciate that. That is awesome. I'm mostly focused on the
are-
parents and the students. The board should be responsible, maturable, but you're right. Given this current situation, that would be beneficial
There are
to make sure
no
the board
other
knows what they're
requests
doing as well.
for public comment. I'm sorry, Mr. Stern, there's no other request for public comment at this time.
make a motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry, you still don't have the other policies. You didn't go through the homeless policy, the food service.
We did. You
We
just
did.
were talking over everyone.
No, we just
Yeah,
got done doing the policy too.
no, we did. We have no comments
Wait a
on
second,
any
hold on.
policies.
Let's go back because you are thinking that you're talking over. We're still
Sir,
having a conversation on the
Mr. Bradley,
number 2.
we went over,
Bradley.
How could you have that?
Mr. Bradley, we did.
You did, huh? At what point in this
meeting
meeting that's being recorded did you think that you went over the
part
homeless
that you
student
were
policy and food
expressing
service?
your disapproval with everything.
While we
That's-
were having a conversation about something else, you decided to go forward
Is
with the
there any-
meeting, do 2 other policies,
Mr. Bradley,
and then ignore everybody,
Second reading.
and
we
then
went-
consider that to be public comment.
and we went to public comment.
Larry, you
Like to see
can't be this, you can't have this low of a moral standard, you know?
Bradley, can you
Mr.
If
please
you're gonna
Bradley,
adjourn
your
and
comments
silence
yourself.
people because you want to continue your lying ways, I find that to be horrible to
Okay,
the
I have a
community.
first on the floor for.
I
adjournment.
really
Rita,
don't think
do I
that's
have
the
a
right way to
second?
do this, Larry. You should follow the law. Why don't you follow the law for a change? You know, why don't we do that?
I believe Ms. Spinell, I'm sorry.
Can we please go back to the homeless students? Because I do have some questions on that one. Oh, now you're
Ms. Spinelli,
now
I'm
you're
sorry.
muting me. I still have some questions.
No
on
one
the
is
homeless
muting you,
and the
Mr.
food service.
Bradley.
I still have questions. I still have.
If I could get a word in
I
it.
still have questions on the homeless and the food service.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Let Rita go before we adjourn because she has probably some comments too.
She seconded the motion for adjournment.
No, we got to discuss homeless students and the
No,
food service.
We discussed these in verbatim.
When did you discuss these
We
verbatim?
discussed
Today?
them in the last meeting, and we'll discuss them again at the board meeting for the second.
But
approval.
you say at the board meeting they're supposed to discuss them at the policy meeting, Larry.
No, I never said that, sir.
You do say that, and that's why you need to discuss them here. This is
Thank
on
you.
the
I believe
agenda. It's
Ms.
our
Spinelli-
responsibility to follow that agenda.
There was a motion to adjourn as
You
well.
have that responsibility to follow that agenda, people.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for attending. Again, apologize for.
I apologize for Larry stepping all over the community, and I apologize for Mr.
I
Cleaver
apologize for
not
Mr.
even
Bradley's
trying to run
action.
the meeting in a professional manner.